Married men of Reddit, what moment with your future wife made you think yup, I'm asking this girl to marry me? My dad told me he knew he wanted to marry my mom when the McDonald's opened in Moscow after the USSR crumbled and she ate 6 Big Macs in a row. I got mad and yelled at her for some stupid because I had been in a toxic relationship prior to meeting her and I thought that what couples did, scream and argue. I expected her to yell back at me. But she just stared at me for a moment and asked if I was done. I said I was and she proceeded to explain to me that people who love one another do not treat each other that way. We can disagree with one another, but there's no reason to be mean. If we're going to be together, please don't be mean to me again. That was 26 years ago. We've been married 25 years. Edit. Thank you guys so much for the kind replies and messages. But I have to confess something. I'm still an asshole. Just not to her. Semicolon. She invited me to her apartment to cook me dinner. On my way, I picked up a prescription and promptly took the first pill. 5 minutes before dinner was ready, I had an adverse effect and passed out on her couch. Woke up and she was gone. Figured she went to the bar across the street we go to. Nope. As I was getting ready to leave, she returned with a fresh set of clothes and toiletries for me for work the next morning. She walked 9 blocks up the hill to my apartment, got me everything I needed for the next day, and came back. This was our second date. We had a long distance relationship. We lived 3 to 4 hours away from each other the entire time we dated. We had met at a concert and traded emails and MSN info. Classic. We emailed and chatted every day. Sometimes for hours. We poured our hearts out about our fears and dreams. I'd go visit her every other weekend. And she'd come once in a while my way. About 3 or 4 months into doing this, I'm at home chilling at home playing some game in my room. My dad calls up the stairs that I got a package in the mail. So I, confused, come walking down the stairs. And there she was. She came up to visit as a surprise. Without thinking, I instinctively ran to her and hugged her and lifted her and spun her a bit. And I felt in my heart a wholeness. Like holding her filled in something I was missing. I knew then that I never would let her go, metaphorically speaking. Been married over 9 years. And I still get that feeling when I hug and kiss her. I left my favorite CD in her car, Dream Theater's Scenes from a Memory. She wasn't a huge fan, but put up with it whenever I listened. One day I was on the phone with her while she was driving, and we said goodbye but she forgot to hang up. I waited a few seconds and I heard her singing along. We'd been together for years, and were on vacation. People asked us if we were newlyweds and we said no and they said ah. So you've been married for a long time then? It did not occur to anyone that we were not married. We figured at that point we might as well throw a party and make it official. Have to post this for my dad. My parents met 39 years ago last Friday. In a lineup for a movie. My mom's friend knew my dad from another friend and introduced them. My dad was known as a wild guy. And my mom was seriously considering becoming a nun. Naturally, they started dating. Couple months later, my mom found a lump in her breast. My dad's aunt died of breast cancer very young. And it just freaked him out I guess. My mother had the lump removed and thank God it was benign. But my dad had already rushed out and bought an engagement ring. He always claims he knew from the moment he saw her. But a couple of glasses of wine and he will tell you that he saw what life could be like without her. And it wasn't worth living. They never fight. They always work together. And my mom's heart still skips a beat when he comes home from work. I've posted this before but since you asked. When I was a young lad I had bought a pair of swords. Now for some reason I still had them. But when my now wife agreed to come over my place I decided to hide them in a storage closet because why would any grown man have these? So, a while down the line she was looking for something in said closet when I heard what the hell? You have swords? Why are you hiding these? I was prepared to be mocked mercilessly. when instead she handed me one and then started swinging. It was about that time that I realized I was going to marry her. You should have shouted there can be only one before beheading her. We had gone on 2 or 3 dates before I asked her to be my girlfriend, and I knew the instant she said yes that we would be married one day. Her eyes just lit up like nothing else when I told her I wanted to make things official. It has felt like I can read her mind since the day I met her. I know when she's happy, sad, upset, tired, annoyed, etc. I knew a few days before she asked me to move in with her that she was going to ask. We have been in sync pretty constantly, and I'm incredibly lucky to be married to someone with whom I'm so in tune. We dated for 3 years, but I knew from day one that we were going to be married. I don't really believe in soulmates or anything too mystical. However, if there was anyone who could change my mind about that, it's my wife. Engaged. Our first date lasted 12 hours because we just couldn't stop talking. Our second date was supposed to be just dinner and it lasted almost 2 days. She drove away after the second date and I couldn't imagine my life without her in it. I was ecstatic to find out she felt the same. So you guys are on what? Like, your 4th date now? When I first told my father that I was dating someone new, he jokingly asked, "What's her name? What does she do? What's her bra size?" I told her about it, hoping to prepare her for his sense of humor, and she thought it was hilarious. The first time they met, she introduced herself by saying, "Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm in college and I'm a B cup." My father was horrified. My mother was laughing hysterically, and I was in love. In my first week as licensed as a paramedic, I had a 2-year-old die on me. When I got off work, I drove to my girlfriend's place and told her about my day. I was pretty numb at the time, trying to process this kid's death despite all my efforts. I laid down on her couch, and she just wrapped her arms around me and laid with me for 3-4 hours as I tried to process. She didn't push or ask lots of questions, just laid there quietly and held me. I slowly was able to talk my way through it. And then the tears started. She cried with me. I felt the whole world was so dark and ugly. But she was my island of light. Started saving up for a ring that week, and asked her to marry me 6 months later. In September we celebrate our 5-year wedding anniversary. I'm still a paramedic, and she's still my island. I've been married just over a week, so I've been telling this story a lot lately. We were 3 days into a month-long backpacking trip in Southeast Asia. We're staying in a seedy hotel in Bangkok and she gets a bad case of food poisoning. It's coming out of both ends for 24 hours. I, of course, am now designated as her nurse. I'm refilling her water bottle, getting her soup from the restaurant outside, keeping her company, and, most importantly, emptying the trash bin she keeps puking into. After one trip to empty her vomit bucket, I come back into the room and she's asleep. I looked at her and thought to myself, I'm not even bothered by this. I'd do anything for her. This is the woman I'm going to marry. She's a disgusting bath fairy, but she's my disgusting bath fairy. Zero regrets. Edit. For all those asking, we had a Jewish wedding, so no vows. I did get to break the art of a glass, though. When we were having a conversation and she kept making me laugh. Her sense of humor is incredible. It also helped when I was taking her out on an early date and she said, "You're spending too much money on me." She knew money was very tight for me. We were in college. Our 34th anniversary is this Saturday. When my son called her mama, my ex left us high and dry when my son was 4 months old. She told me on several occasions that she would murder me if I dumped her after she turned 40. So I proposed on her 40th birthday. 40th. I don't know why, but that looks so weird written out. Also congrats. The very first time I laid eyes on her, we married after going steady for 15 months and remained married for 56 years. Until her death 3 years ago. Blue-eyed blonde and a 10 in my book. Miss her terribly. The day she took off work to help me go through a dumpster. I had accidentally thrown my keys in the trash while cleaning out my car. Edit. We found them 2 hours later. For the most part, it was the fact that the very day we started dating she was staying at my house. Not quite living there. Just hanging out forever till that turned into living with me. Never thought too much about it till a year later and realized that we have never spent a day away from each other. Married September 2006. And still going strong. Once I got flu. She stood by me day and night until I recovered. I got to see her nurturing side for the first time. I was already in love with her. This sealed the deal. I was driving us home from a golf tournament for couples. We stopped to get some lunch and as I was driving she handed me a perfectly unwrapped burger that I could eat one-handed while she sat cross-legged next to me. Not sure why but I just felt so loved. Nurtured and happy in that moment. Now that's sort of our thing. We love to travel and no matter where we stop to eat she will always make sure I am able to eat in a convenient way. Something about watching the road while your now wife sets a napkin on your leg. Puts the fries face up in the cup holder and gets the burger ready to go. Been together 10 years, married for 2. I was 18 and just gotten out of a dental appointment where 2 of my wisdom teeth were pulled out. I was drooling. Stains of blood all over my shirt and it was the summertime. My GF at the time was 16. Took what little money she had from her allowance. Bought me a box of ice cream and biked 25 minutes just to deliver that box of ice cream and see how I was doing. With blood stains all over. She still gave me that look of love and planted a kiss on me. That was almost 20 years ago and I still can't imagine having a happier life without her in it. On our 4th date we got a cheap pizza and went to a park in October up north. We fell asleep and woke up freezing at 2 in the morning. Instead of getting up and leaving we just held each other and went back asleep for another 2 hours. I knew from that moment I was gonna marry this girl. By the use of up north and cheap pizza probably meaning Little Caesars, I'm going to guess you're from Michigan, lol. I was divorced going on my 3rd year. Had dated several women. But this one girl I only had been dating 10 days when I blurted out asking her to marry me. She said yes. It's been 32 years now and we're still very much in love. When the schmossby turns out for the better. A few months into dating. She had a breakdown. At the time. She had been diagnosed as bipolar, where she spent a week in the psych ward of a local hospital. The day she went in, I came to visit her. And she pleaded with me to just leave and be done with her. It wasn't an absurd thing to suggest. After all, we were young, me 20, her 22. I'd only been dating for 3 months. And dealing with legit mental illness in a partner is a big thing to sign up for. But not only did I not even for a second consider her suggestion. I knew in that moment of decision that this was the real ideal. I proposed 2 months later. We were married just a little over a year after we started dating. And tomorrow is our 14th anniversary. She hasn't had an episode since. Which we both count as a blessing. But even if it does come again, I'll be there. At one point I looked at her. Cracked a smile and thought, wow, I could really see living the rest of my life with her. When I smiled she said, what? What are you thinking? Oh. Nothing. I responded. A few moments of silence passed and then she said, hey. Yeah? I asked. Me too. She finished. Then back to silence. That was it. That's when I knew. We had been dating maybe 3 months at this point. We have now been married for 8 years and have 2 amazing kids. My husband tells me he knew when he casually asked me this question on our 2nd date. What time is it? Correct answer, and the answer I gave? It's howdy doody time. Married 24 years in August. We had a fight and she was so chill about it. I was in the wrong and was just in a jerk mood. Right away she talked to me in a mellow voice and explained why I made her feel TTY and that I should take 2 days of radio silence to think about it. None of this, you should know what is wrong. Even though I told you nothing is wrong, and none of that yelling and or talking my ear off for hours. And awesomely giving me the time I need to figure my out. I was like, yes. I can live with this. TL. DR. Rough waters are truer tests of leadership. In calm water every ship has a good captain. When she said, you know, if you asked me to marry you, I'd say yes. Subtle. Just happened to me about 2 weeks ago. No lie. I was washing my hands in the bathroom and it hit me out of left field. I knew right then and there I wanted to marry her. Got the ring yesterday. Wish me luck. Edit. She said yes. I was at a party I didn't want to be at when I met her. She ended up getting really drunk. Got touchy-feely with me and I took her home. After a fun night, so to speak. We woke up and she was getting ready to leave. I said, hey, let me get your number, and she says, oh, I don't think so. Very seriously. She watched my face drop. Gave it a beat and then said, just kidding. It was early on but I knew she was going to be a good time. 10 years later she's still busting my balls and making me laugh. Went on a 5-day road trip with her and didn't get tired of her company. I get exhausted by spending more than 2 days in a row with almost anyone. While making Rice Krispie treats, my future wife snuck a spoonful of the melted marshmallow and made me a fresh peanut butter and marshmallow fluff sandwich without me noticing. When I took the first bite, I knew I'd never find anyone better. Him and that sandwich are still married to this day. I lived in a half-decent apartment in Hell's Kitchen in New York City. The place had a tub that was massively stained when I moved in. Every chick I dated tried to get that stain out. This was in the 90s when I was young and single in New York City. So that means plenty of women took a shot at it. My future wife came out of the bathroom one day and nonchalantly said, clean the tub. I ran into the bathroom and couldn't believe my eyes. That was my sword in the stone. How did you do it? Men, I don't give up. Edit. I've now asked her how she did it. She claims it was nothing more than Ajax and bleach. It was orange. So we're thinking an iron stain. Sorry there isn't a more magical answer. But I guess the truth is her resolve dissolves all else. She insisted on cooking me steak on one of our first few dates. It was the best steak I'd ever had. I ended up drunkenly confessing my love soon afterward. For the steaks. Of course. Similar story. My dad says that he first proposed to my mom over a plate of lasagna. He had made it from scratch, like handcrafted the noodles from dough and everything. He proposed to her over pasta. And she just rolled her eyes and said, ask me again when you're serious. Hot redhead on street. Patrick's Day drinking Guinness out of a pitcher. That's the girl for me. Introduced myself. Spent the rest of the day with her. Stumbled to a buddies who lived close to the bar. Told him I met the girl I was going to marry. In 20+ years. On our first date we went to a movie theater that served drinks to your chair, Alamo Drafthouse. When they asked what we would like to drink, she ordered a pitcher of Sierra Nevada and I said, good choice, we can share. Before I could finish my sentence she said, oh well, this one's mine, we can get you one too. So we did. And since we've been sharing beers, collecting beers, and visiting breweries ever since. I always tell people that ask me when I knew she was the one, and my response is the first date. After she ordered a full pitcher of IPA for herself, that's when I found out I had met my soulmate. I don't even care how cliché it is. I knew the first moment I saw her. It was this super weird feeling of intuition that I'd never felt before. That never went away. It was like, yep, you're going to marry her someday. In the meantime, you should figure yourself out because you're kind of a giant tool right now. We didn't even date until 5 years later. Dated other people and had our own lives. And during that whole time she was just this little seed waiting patiently in the back of my subconsciousness. Marriage has been at times euphoric and at times agonizing. Right now it's better than ever. Our second baby will be born next week. We were young. I was moving across the country to be with her at the time. And she got our apartment all ready before I got there. Our bathroom was really small. She had purchased this blue bathroom rug for the floor. And because the rug was too large, she carefully cut out these notches for the sink stand and the front of the toilet bowl so the carpet would fit perfectly flat. She cut the bathroom rug perfectly. I knew she had to be mine. So she can cut a rug. But can she dance? My wife and I were good friends before we became romantically involved. She was one of the guys. And it wasn't unusual to roughhouse a little. This sounds asshole in retrospect. But it really wasn't at the time. You know that thing you used to do to your sister when you were like 12? Where you'd pin her down and threaten to spit on her by letting the spit hang out of your mouth. Then sucking it back up at the last minute? Dear God. I hope I'm not the only one who did this. Well. I did that to my friend now wife. Except I waited too long and I accidentally spit directly in her eye. Instead of being furious like a normal person, she busted out laughing. We've been married 12 years. We danced together at her high school graduation party. We had been out a few times previous but were not dating at the time. I was invited by another girl's mother, she was hosting the party. That was 38 years ago. We've been married 30 years. We dated for 8 years. It was our first date. It was the last day of classes before Thanksgiving break. She was supposed to drive home after class. It was just a coffee date that stretched out for several hours. It was just comfortable. Conversation flowed. I wasn't worried about saying anything dumb or silly. We were completely ourselves. It culminated in a shy kiss in her car before she left to drive home. Her mom knew why she was late. Just by her mood. I went back to my apartment and talked to my roommate. I told him there was something special about this girl. We'll be celebrating our 10-year anniversary this summer. I had broken my right arm, actually cracked my elbow, and I'm right-handed. We had been together for about 6 months and she wiped my ass for me. Enough said. This thread is making me feel very single. I think I'll go look at cats or something. When she was meeting my parents, she put together an outfit and asked, "What do you think? Does this say, hey parents? Look at me. I'm awesome. Or I slept with your son on the first date?" This may be a bit unusual. But the way she could toss an insult around. I tend to tease playfully. And she could always toss banter right back. We ended up insulting each other so much that my friend had to assure his girlfriend that we were only kidding and didn't hate each other. It was great. On or about our second date, my future spouse was on call for her medical job. A beeper went off, dates the story, and we rushed to the hospital where I got to watch her handle a trauma case. I saw confidence, expertise, calmness under pressure, kindness and caring and a few other desired traits shine forth, and with that added to her package I knew she was someone I could respect for the rest of my life. We celebrate our 24th anniversary this fall.